Hey, Athon authors and fans, here with the new year, talking about a couple of releases we have today. We have quite a number in varying genres and a couple of box sets to check out. So we're going to get started with Rebel Strike by the amazing Jamie McFarlane and Rachel Oakes. Rebel Strike, this is actually book 3 in the Space Troopers series. I got a description real here. When a tyrannical corporation seizes control, two young patriots will risk everything to liberate humanity. With the system engulfed in a corporate war, Jai and Peyton are yanked in different directions. Jai has joined the rebellion, while Peyton is amassing a pirate fleet. When an old friend brings the twins back together, they learn of Zona's sinister plan to quell the rebellion and institute an iron grip over the entire solar system. So, book 3, check that one out. I think the next one is going to be more of a dystopian wasteland type future, and the Wasteland book 3 actually is Fugitive by Devin C. Ford. With the plan of mass murder failed, Riviera and his team face the challenge of cleaning up the mess. They soon come to realize that Zion can't operate in a vacuum, and the key to their future relies on uniting the wasteland. Going back out to the fight to rid their world of the most dangerous elements comes at a great cost. Can they handle it? Next up, we have a box set, Captain Quasar. This one has been compared to Guardians of the Galaxy and other space operas of that nature. We have Captain Quasar by Milo James Fowler. Captain Quasar is out of time, pursued by vengeful Gubalob, toll collectors, savage arachnoid bounty hunters, and formidable Amazonians. Captain Bartholomew Quasar must do whatever he can to keep the crew of effervescent magnitude out of harm's way. So you got sort of a comedy space opera element to this one, and we've heard the reviews are pretty good on that one. And then the next one is a massive box set, God Chosen, by T.S. Snow. God Chosen, you will be the father of kings. This prophecy to a 16-year-old blacksmith's son sends Trigar from his home armed only with his father's sword. But being God chosen isn't easy. The woman he wants doesn't want him. The man who should be his best friend thinks him laughable, and everyone ridicules his youth until he slays a dragon. So those are our main new releases, but then we also have Gus Harris-Reid with us today to talk about the power of empathy. Hey, Gus, welcome.
Hello.
This is actually book 2 of Marshals of Rhea, so if y'all want to know, we will probably be talking about book 1 rather than book 2, just the series as a whole. So, Gus, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the world of Marshals of Rhea.
Hi, I'm Gus Harris-Reid, the author of the Marshals of Rhea Trilogy. It's the first thing I've published with Athon Books. So I'll just give you a sort of outline of the setting of the series. So it's set in like a inhospitable, desolate Mad Max style desert called the Wastelands of Rhea. Funnily enough, funny you should be bringing out another book with Wasteland in the title as well. So lots of desolate wastelands around, which is all good.
Oh yeah.
And these wastelands are populated by the great houses who live in their massive strongholds, which are scattered across the wastelands. And the time the series takes place, there are only 5 great houses remaining. There were many more, but they have all been destroyed over the years through either war with the other houses, or they were destroyed by the Skylar, which are mechanical monsters who roam the wastelands, or the Dwellers, who are a mysterious group of raiders and scavengers who somehow survive out in the wastelands. And we learn a lot more about the Skylar and the Dwellers as the series progresses, but the focus is very much on the great houses. And each great house is sort of its own isolated community. You've got the High Marshal who's in charge, and you've got all the lesser marshals and all the soldiers and servants as well. And the armorers, who are like the engineers and techno wizards, literally, who design and manufacture all of the great houses' technology, including the Chargers, which are 18-foot tall mechs You can see some on the cover there of book 2. And the great houses use these for fighting, obviously, but also just for going out into the wastelands. Because if you went out on foot, you'd probably soon die of exposure or get eaten by a skylar. So yes, that's a brief summary of the world in which the series is set.
Now, techno magic. Explain this to us, because I love this idea. I love the element. I love every unique that you can put on a superpower or magic or a magic system. Techno magic is one that I think is one of the more interesting ways to go about it. So to explain the techno magic of Marshals of Rhea.
So the magic that the armorers use is called the power of empathy, which is the title of book 2. And to be honest, it's not a particularly hard magic system. It doesn't necessarily have very clearly defined rules within the series. Think more Gandalf's powers and less allomancy. But yeah, I mean, it works basically like electricity in the world. Like you have empathic lamps, empathic generators, that kind of thing. So in a lot of ways, it just works like the world's electricity, but the armorers can control it, sometimes remotely using their mind in certain situations. And yeah, so another interesting thing about the armorers is although the high marshals are technically in charge of the great houses, it's the armorers who sort of have a monopoly on technology. So that which a lot of the marshals aren't particularly happy about. So that tension is explored a bit throughout the series.
Gotcha. So it becomes a political position or political power through it. So very interesting. So I think pretty much every viewer will probably have something from their childhood or something from their youth that they absolutely loved about mechs and mech series. And there's been so many different unique ways to express what mech looks like and the different feels and flavors of them. What are some of your favorite?
I think the first one that comes to mind is probably Pacific Rim. I wouldn't say it's necessarily one of my favorite films, but certainly my favorite guilty pleasure film, in that it's awesomely ridiculous and ridiculously awesome. I think Gundam, obviously, some may disagree, but I would say that Gundam is probably the sort of most famous and prolific anime mech series anyway. And I mean, my mechs are nothing like Gundams. Gundams are far sort of slicker and cleaner and more high tech. But one thing I love about one thing that happens in Gundam a lot is while the mechs are fighting, you have these massive robot battles, but you also have the pilot sort of engaged in a battle of wits, having all these amazing like philosophical and political arguments while the mechs are fighting. So I definitely tried to include a little bit of that. I think especially the final battle of book 1 includes a little bit of that. I think my favorite, if I had to pick a favorite mech, and the sort of the biggest single inspiration for my charges, would be Warhammer 40k Imperial Knights. And anyone who's familiar with Warhammer 40k will probably see some very obvious similarities with my mechs. But I did try and make mine quite unique and to differentiate them. And I think the cover artist of the series, I think, did a really good job of sort of capturing that techno feudal sort of high tech medieval look, to sort of evoke that comparison, but while still keeping it very much its own thing. So yeah, I think the covers turned out really well, I think. Yeah,
I think the covers came out very well. I think one of my favorite. I like a lot of mechs, Gundam included. My boys, 6 and 4 now, just started watching Power Rangers, and so I love them getting excited about every new Zord or something like that. But one that I absolutely love, which it would have some similarities to that medieval inspiration, is going to be actually an anime called Escaflowne, and it's powered by the heart of a dragon. So traditionally, this guy literally had to go and slay his dragon. His older brother got killed by a dragon. It's how it starts. And he had to go out on his own, slay a dragon, pull its heart out in order to be able to power his mech, because he's a prince and it's literally passed down through royal lineage. And it was very interesting. And like he had to put some of his blood into the heart of the dragon, which is a stone, which is the source of power to power the mech. It was very original and unique, but it has that medieval flair as well. So it's, of course, as you look things back at in your childhood, it seems much more grand and amazing than in the future. If I were to go back and watch it, I'd probably cringe, but it was so much fun. Dean just said that his boys, same age as mine, just got into Power Rangers. It's awesome to watch them get into the stuff that we loved as a kid. So yeah, so very excited to read a couple of these. The next question I had, I like getting writer tips from different writers who have successfully, I mean, just completing a trilogy is an amazing feat, which we were talking beforehand. Book 3 is already done and ready to go. So completing a trilogy is difficult. And for our aspiring authors, what advice do you have for planning a trilogy and getting a trilogy concisely done? Because I feel like I keep running into it's like, how do I time this? How do I make 3 interesting arcs? Does my story actually conform to the pattern that a trilogy needs to be in? Anyway, what's your view on writing a trilogy and some advice for aspiring authors?
Well, when I wrote book 1, I pretty much I didn't know it was going to be a trilogy at that point. I didn't know. I thought it would just be a standalone book. So I pretty much just sort of made it up as I went along, and all the characters and the world and the setting and everything sort of evolved as I went. And I left it quite wide open for potential future books or whatever. But at that point, it was just a standalone thing. And then when Aethon wanted me to do a trilogy, I then had to sort of take those threads that I'd left dangling and then extend it forward. So because I was working with an established world and established characters and everything, I had to do a lot more planning. So I actually ended up planning books 2 and 3 pretty much down to the scene.
Wow.
But so yeah, when I wrote book 2, I didn't necessarily know what was going to happen in book 3. I had some idea of where I wanted it to end up, but yeah, no, I didn't sort of plan it out in too much detail. I didn't plan book 3 in too much detail when I was doing book 2, but I had these threads running through that I knew would have to be resolved. Mm-hmm. And I think actually a really good thing about writing books 2 and 3 back to back was that as I was writing book 3, I could then go and retcon myself and change things in book 2 to sort of maintain that continuity. Whereas if they had been published sort of if they had been written and published one at a time, I would have been far more locked into what I'd done before. So it was really it was quite liberating in a way. It was nice to have that freedom to be able to go back and change things as I went. So I think it was quite a good way to do it. And yes, even within book 3, there were certain some things I think when you're writing, whether it's a book or a trilogy, some things you know are going to happen at the end, and some things you sort of have a placeholder for something that needs to happen. Like at the end of book 1, there were like 2 big questions that sort of I knew I had to answer without going into too much detail or anything too spoilery. Mm-hmm. One of them I think gets fully resolved over the course of book 2, and one of them sort of doesn't, and then I sort of had to carry that forward into book 3 and explain it there. So so I think it is a good way of doing it, sort of doing them back to back, although it is quite exhausting. Sort of just doing that much material at once. I'm not a particularly fast writer. I'm not like some people who can like churn out thousands of words a day. I think my
oh gosh, who was it? I think I was talking to someone. They said they do 28,000 words a week.
Yeah, madness.
Because they're maintaining 2 or 3 at a time online releases. Oh yeah, I'm so frustrated to hear and talk to those people.
Yeah, so I think it probably took me about like 5-6 months to get the first draft done. But with this book, it's an interesting one because the middle installment of a trilogy, it sort of has an advantage in that it doesn't have to start the story or end the story. I think that's possibly why like The Two Towers is my favorite Lord of the Rings film, is because it can sort of get straight into it and it doesn't have to worry about all the setup and conclusion. Mm-hmm. So I suppose it's the same here. There was I could just sort of go straight into it, and no, I didn't have to conclude it. It's like that Simpsons meme. That's the problem for future Homer. I don't envy that guy. It's like future Gus can deal with tying everything up in book 3. So in a way, book 2 was book 2 was quite easy in that way. But also, I think by the time I got to book 3, I sort of knew, having done sort of 2 books already in this universe, I sort of had a better grasp of it. So book 3 was probably the easiest to do because I sort of had that sort of weight of knowledge and material already done.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we have a big fan, Christopher Morgan, that says he loves your explanation, and now he's definitely gonna pick up the book.
Excellent.
And so we definitely have some mech fans, and I think military sci-fi fans will probably kind of anchor into this genre pretty well as well. And we have lots of military sci-fi fans. So fantastic. So book 1 is House Omega.
Yep.
And so if y'all are wanting to jump into a mech series, House Omega, and book 2 released The Power of Empathy. So you can get back-to-back reading for those of you who like to really get a kickstart and jump through the books super fast. I know we have a bunch of those. And then book 3 is going to release
8th of Feb.
8th of February. Yep, Fate of Rhea, February 8th.
It's the best one, book 3, so you'll definitely want to read that one.
Sounds good. Well, yeah, y'all won't have to wait long, so go ahead and pick up House Omega. And let's see, we got another commenter. All right. So Chris says he already picked it up while we was watching. So
Brilliant.
All right. Well, thanks, Gus, for joining us. And thanks for all your hard work on this series. You also said you were writing a couple of short stories that go into this world that might get released here or there or wherever. So keep fighting the good fight on your writing. So thank you so much. We'll see y'all next week when we do another round of new releases. So have a good one.